街小巷，每个人的嘴里，见面第一句话就是恭喜恭喜，恭喜恭喜恭喜你呀，恭喜恭喜恭喜你！冬天已到尽头，真是好的消息，温暖的春风吹醒了大地，恭喜恭喜恭喜你呀，恭喜恭喜恭喜你，恭喜恭喜恭喜你。
Hello and welcome, this is Big Ben. You are listening to Meet the Entertainers on the Big Ben Show. And today, wait for it, I am freestyling. Yes, that's right, I am improvising. I don't have any notes. Oh, okay, I have a few notes, but not really. I haven't looked at them. I made these notes like a week ago. I'm not going to look. I'm going to improvise. Here we go. Today, we're talking to Jason Tardy, a performing artist, does comedy and juggling, and also comedy and technology show. Hey, that's amazing. Check him out at jasontardy.com. The spellings are in the description for this podcast. It's an interesting story because there's I'm noticing there's a few different ways to become an entertainer. Some people like me just turn up in a country and almost fall into this job by accident because there's no one else doing it. Then other people like Guy Bovley kind of use the established magician's set of organisations and events and proceed through the kind of a ladder, the career ladder of the magician. And then there's other people like Jason Tardy who don't develop their career in isolation. They make their money by putting on their own shows, i.e., in short, people pay to see them. And freestyle mixing. If you're wondering why I'm playing that music, I'm in Hong Kong, and in Hong Kong we are now gearing up for the massive Chinese New Year festivities, which are starting at the end of this week. So that's going to be awesome. It's actually that reminds me of a story. We're going through. We're coming to the end of the kind of the big festive season in Asia. Asia, of course, is lucky. Not only do we celebrate Christmas because the shops can make loads of money, so I've been doing all the Christmas shows, but they also, the following month or so, have Chinese New Year, which is massive if you're in an Asian country. It's a Chinese country. It's a huge event. I mean, the whole streets are dead, the shops closed for the first time ever. Everybody's visiting their families and singing songs like this. Or maybe not that song, anyway. So, I thought I'd tell my festive story while I still can. It happened a little while ago. It happened in Christmas, but let's just call it the festive season, okay? And I was dressed up as Santa, and I had a show a long way away, and I was a bit stressed about getting there on time. So I booked a minivan in advance, and I went downstairs at the right time to get the minivan, and he wasn't there. So of course, being me, I was starting to stress, because I could see lots of empty taxis going past. And normally the taxis, there's not many taxis, but get this straight. I didn't expect to get a taxi because my show was so far away. Often taxi drivers don't want to go to the other side of Hong Kong, up near China. They obviously, sometimes they don't want to go that far. So I thought I'll book a minivan, but the minivan wasn't there, and there were taxis there. So, okay, the minivan's late, I'm going to get a taxi. I feel a bit bad, but there's a taxi there, and he's happy to take me all the way up to the border of mainland China to do my show. So, okay, I will get in the taxi, and I'll just call the minivan company and cancel the minivan. It's a bit in bad form, but, it's not too bad. Unfortunately, as I'm getting in the taxi, the minivan pulls up right behind me, and I'm like, oh man. Okay, I say to the taxi driver, hang on a second. The taxi driver's confused. What's my customer doing? And so I rush down to the minivan, and I say to the guy, look, I'm really sorry. I got a taxi now. I'm going to give you $50. Hold on, guys. It's 50 Hong Kong dollars, not 50 US dollars. Not quite as much money, and I'm not just throwing money away. Although it's the festive season, so I give this minivan driver. I kind of get him to wind down his window, and I shove him $50 in his face and say, I'm sorry, I'm getting in the taxi. And the man's all obviously a bit confused. What's he doing? So I jump in the taxi. I leave the minivan driver. He's got $50 just for turning up. Okay, so I'm not going to get blacklisted by the minivan company. I'm in the taxi, off to my show, and my phone starts ringing. Hello, this is the minivan company. Your minivan is here. I'm like, no. I've sorted that out. Okay. And I hang up. 10 minutes later, the phone rings again. Your minivan is still waiting. I'm like, what? Your minivan? But I... And then it clicks. I gave the money to the wrong minivan. Oh no! The van behind me, just by chance, happening to stop at my block, was not the minivan I'd booked. The poor guy who I'd booked turned up a few minutes later, and he'd been hanging around for like 10 minutes now, wondering where on earth I was. So, think about it. Let's play some music. There we go. I'm mixing as I speak. Whoa. So think about it. This guy in the first minivan, this Hong Kong guy, has seen this panicky looking middle-aged white man dressed as Father Christmas rush up, bang on his minivan, and just give him randomly $50 and then rush off. How weird is that? He must be thinking, what the hell? So, yeah, he's just seen Father Christmas come out of nowhere and give him $50 for no reason whatsoever. Well, that's my story. Let's talk now to Jason Tardy. Here he is. Amazing career. Didn't develop in isolation. Working a lot with his brother. You can check him out, as I said, at jasontardy.com. And if you're interested in me, you can check me out at www.thebigbenshow.com. And incidentally, my website is the place where you can play all the old episodes of my podcasts, because I only put about 3 or 4 up on the old iTunes or Podomatic to keep my costs down. So if you want to see the old episodes, then just pop along to www.thebigbenshow.com. And if you are listening, please recommend this to your friends. This is the Entertainers podcast, done by entertainers, for entertainers. And this week's entertainer, Jason Tardy. Amazing stuff. Go visit his website, jasontardy.com. Okay, I'll give you the spelling. Jason, okay, easy. Tardy, Tardy. So jasontardy.com. Check out his website. Watch his videos on YouTube. It's really, really cool stuff. He makes his own shows and people pay to see him. Let's talk to Jason Tardy. Alright, so briefly, Jason, in case there's somebody on this planet who hasn't seen your amazing videos on YouTube, what is it? What is it that you do? If someone asks you what's your job, what do you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a performing artist, obviously, but I have 2 main shows I do. One is a comedy and juggling show with my brother.
Right.
And then the other main show I do is a comedy and technology show called Audio Body.
Right.
And that show kind of takes all the circus arts and skills we learned as jugglers over 20 years and then puts it in a different kind of setting. And that's kind of the newest show. But yeah, I guess overall I'm just a entertainer. I do a lot of comedy, but I mix a lot of skills. And now with the technology, that's actually a really fun extra dimension to what I do. So. Well,
I'd recommend anybody to go onto YouTube and have a look at your Audio Body videos. They're quite amazing. Yeah, really good stuff. Really.
Thank you.
Way better than anything I've ever done.
Well, it's funny. The Audio Body stuff is so much technology based, and we're building all these crazy inventions and learning how to use technology. So, it's really cool, but also, you can kind of get into a rut where you're relying on the technology too much.
Right.
It's kind of like magicians, where there's some magicians that can come out and perform with a deck of cards and a few coins, and they'll blow you away. And this other guy has this giant box with all these assistants, and it's not as interesting, really.
Right. Yeah. Fair point.
We find that at first we were kind of going too gimmicky in a way, and now we're trying to like, okay, how do we really make this, what we do best, which is kind of that. My brother and I,
sure.
We have this kind of connection where we interact with each other. So trying to make our characters kind of a bigger part of the show.
Yeah. Are you both technologically? Do you have an education in electronics and technology?
We do a lot of school shows, and we try to emphasize this point, and that is that our education is basically YouTube and the internet. When it comes to technology, we basically said, I want to build this giant drum set that we use, and we're like, all right,
yes.
well, first we bought drums, electronic drums and hardware, and it worked great. And then we said, all right, this takes up a small trailer. Let's make it so we can fly with this show.
Yeah.
So we basically started from scratch, and we built things and made mistakes and tried things and kind of learned a lot of trial and error, but also we took it upon ourselves to learn how to do these things. Like, I didn't know how to solder, so I went online, bought a soldering kit, watched some videos, and I'm not amazing at it, but I can do what I need to do. So, even with the lighting stuff we do, and Matt writes all the music we use, he basically buys programs and went, all right, how do you use this program? And goes through all the tutorials and learns it himself. So,
that's phenomenal.
One of our strengths is that we're kind of lifelong learners. We're always interested in learning new things.
Yeah.
So when we started doing the audio body stuff, it was actually fun because, the juggling was really fun, but after a while it gets stale, So it was fun to kind of give ourselves a new outlet and something new to learn, which was really fun, I thought.
I think we better tell people what Audio Body is then, because I would say I saw on YouTube. There's a lot of work with suits where you press parts of the suits and it makes noises.
Yeah. Yes.
How would you describe Audio Body to someone who hasn't seen a video of you yet? And you should see a video.
Yeah.
Anybody listening should see a video.
Yeah, Audio Body is kind of a mix of circus arts mixed with technology. So some of the things we do in the show, we have this 15-foot wide electronic drum set, and really what it is it's a bunch of bungee cords. And when you hit the bungee cord, basically that bungee cord is just an electrical connection, so it's just a button.
Yeah.
So it's a fancy way of having this giant button mashing machine that we play with drumsticks.
Yeah.
But we also have, like you mentioned, electronic jumpsuits where it's the same idea. We just have buttons rigged to our bodies and vibrational switches on our feet. We build LED light tubes we manipulate in the dark. We do some blacklight effects with ropes. One of my favorite things in the show is it's made of Legos now. We keep changing it, but basically it's this juggling contraption where it holds 7 balls, and as you pick up the balls, they push buttons on our arcade controller thing, which basically every time you pick up a ball, it plays a drum track or the bass line or something like that. So it's kind of a way for us to play the music and kind of remix and bring in and out tracks from the song, but at the same time we have this storyline of us fighting. So we're always fighting over the balls, and then eventually we're juggling and doing all these complex juggling patterns. So Audio Body is just this crazy mashup of, like I said, our circus arts training mixed with this new technology stuff, and we bring all of our own lighting to every show, so all the lighting's choreographed to the music and to what we're doing.
God, there's so much to talk about just in that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
I wasn't going to start with Audio Body, but let's as we're here, let's go for it. So, I can see straight away you've got the technology, but you've also got the two brothers fighting competing and antagonizing each other. So you've got the human element, which you've been trying to work on. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've had people kind of compare it to like Blue Man Group because it's the comedy music stuff, and then Smothers Brothers because they're kind of comedy music too, but it's more that brotherly conflict where one guy is trying to keep the show moving and the other guy just keeps messing it up. And sometimes in the show we've kind of worked on it now where we both can kind of do that. Every once in a while my brother's character will be the person that kind of messes things up as well. But for the most part, the character I usually play is the guy that's messing everything up, and he actually knows what's going on. and the reason is because when we, it's kind of funny, but the reason why we do it that way is because he actually knows how a lot of the technology works with the programming on the laptop, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And I say, hey, do you think you can make it do this? And he's like, I don't know about that. And he'll actually figure out a way to program it to do what we want.
Right.
But it works out great because in the Audio Body show, he's kind of the guy that keeps everything in line, and I'm the one just screwing it up. Which is interesting because in the juggling show, it's actually the opposite way around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's only because I'm the older brother, and when we first started performing, I always just was the guy like, okay, I'm going to be the guy that talks, and he's just going to be the guy that's in the show with me and juggles and doesn't really talk as much. I was kind of the... Yeah. So anyway.
Wow. I think you're being quite modest to say you made all this yourself from just watching YouTube videos, but is that seriously, you've just taught you're self-taught for the technological stuff?
No, we graduated high school. We both graduated high school a year early because we started performing in middle school. Mm-hmm. And by the time we graduated high school, we were already doing this. So when it comes to like music, Matt's been writing music for just as long as we've been juggling, pretty much. And then, so that's kind of been something he's always been working on. But then with the technology, it really is just, we said, all right, we need to make, jumpsuits. That would be cool. How do we play this music in a fun way? Jumpsuits would be awesome.
Wow.
So we said, all right, how are we going to do that? And we bought some little triggers and zip tied them to a jumpsuit and said, hey, this works awesome.
Okay, you've inspired me. Maybe I should start looking at YouTubes on electronics as well. I know it. I thought I needed special training and a special education to know this stuff.
Yeah, well, and that's what we try to stress to people. Like, nowadays, if you want to learn anything, you can learn a foreign language, you can learn all these crazy things, and if you go online, you can usually learn it. But, the good thing about our show is really when it comes down to the technology side, when it comes down to our contraptions, it's always just some kind of button that we're pushing, most of the time anyway.
Yes.
It's a button we're pushing that goes to the laptop. And there's a million ways you can take a button, you can mount it to, like we said, this big drum set with a bungee cord.
Yeah.
You can put it on your body. You can build it into this arcade controller thing we use now. So a lot of that, technology-wise, is super simple. We also do a thing with Wii remotes where we sync them to a laptop. And that was one of the things where we're like, that would be awesome. Matt went online, and there's a bunch of videos out there on how to do it. And we made our own because we found the ones out there weren't as complete as what we needed. Yeah. So we kind of said, well, it'd be a lot easier if they would have said to do this, this, and this. So we actually made our own video to kind of help other people that might want to do the same thing.
When you do these shows, is it just you and your brother, or do you have to take a technical crew with you to help set everything up?
It's basically the two of us. We have an apprentice that we were kind of bringing around with us. Mm-hmm. And actually now he can do the show with us.
Yes, I think I've seen him on the videos, yes.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. My brother decided to move to Texas just because the weather in Maine is snowing all the time. And when he moved, for the local shows, I wanted to have someone else to do it. And our apprentice had always kind of been training in juggling and seeing our shows a lot. So we said, let's just train him to do the show. So, sometimes he does the show. But basically, whenever we do Audio Body, two people show up. And it's either myself and my brother or, the combination between the three of us. Usually it's my brother and I. We can set up the whole show. It used to take forever to set everything up.
I bet, yeah.
But we really worked hard. It was like 8 hours because we'd have to train someone on all the lighting. We'd have to set everything up. Everything took a while. There's all these cables to run. And now what we've done is, now that we run all of our own lighting, it actually makes that's a few hours shaved off the top right there. We don't have to teach anyone. Yeah. Plus, we have way more lighting cues, which is awesome. And we built everything from scratch
Yeah.
several times. We keep remaking things, and every time we build it, we're like, all right, now how do we make it so it sets up faster? So now the whole thing we set up in an hour and a half, really.
Wow.
Easy. But yeah, it's just 2 people. We set everything up, and then when the show starts, the technical crew, basically we just get one XLR, microphone input into our laptop, and we say, turn off all your lights, and you can go to sleep. Maybe a couple cues with house lights, but other than that, we're running all the lights, all the sound, and everything right on stage.
You're running it on stage. Oh, that's brilliant. Gosh.
Yeah, because the computer, basically, our laptop is sending out lighting cues to our lights.
Yeah.
And then it's also all the music and all the microphones and different things we use are all kind of submixed through the laptop as well. So it's actually really cool.
I think that's incredibly cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just all that, that brain, we call it, is actually just one carry-on suitcase. So it's like a laptop and, a bunch of little modules that interface with the laptop.
That's fantastic. So what kind of venues do you perform this show in? For example, I do a lot of corporate shows and shopping centre shows, and I wouldn't be able to do it there because they don't want me to spend an hour and a half setting up. They want me just to go on stage within 30 seconds and start my show.
Yep.
What kind of venues do you perform at? What kind of functions?
Well, Audio Body was kind of made for performing arts centers.
Right.
That's what we really want to do it in. But we've really found that here in the U.S. anyway, a lot of performing arts centers, the audiences seem to be really old people.
Okay.
Which is like fine, and they love our show. It goes over really well. And really, Audio Body and all the shows I do, really, I'd rather have a family audience. I don't want just corporate people. I don't want just kids. I'd really rather have the whole spectrum because I feel like it hits everybody in a different way and makes it a more fun show. But yeah, the performing arts centers, we found pretty quick that they have really good money, which is great. But the problem with them is they see our show, they go, "Oh, your show's awesome," but I don't know if our audience would like it.
Yeah.
And we're like, you just liked what we did in this showcase. We perform like at showcases to get a lot of these performing arts bookings. And when they do book us, they love it. And if they do like a school outreach earlier in the week or earlier in the day where we do a show at a school and then a show at the Performing Arts Center that night, they get more kids than they've ever had, and it's this huge success. But for whatever reason, Performing Arts Centers really seem to tailor to this older crowd, and I think they're kind of missing the boat and getting a younger crowd in there. But besides Performing Arts Centers and theaters, which we kind of wrote it for, we found it works really well in schools. And now that we're able to set the show up so quickly, and it's not like an all-day event, we find that we can actually be more flexible with our pricing, where we say, okay, Performing Arts Center's this much, a school, we can basically do it for half the price.
Right.
And I don't mind doing that because it's a school, and we're also going to educate the kids on technology and kind of tell them our story and struggles of trying to be performing artists and how we achieved our goals. Kind of an inspirational story we kind of tell to the kids, and anti-bullying message, that kind of thing.
Yes.
But schools work great, and we've even done, they have some maker festivals and maker fairs. I don't know if you've heard of those or not.
No.
But they're really fun. They're sprouting up everywhere now, but maker fairs are basically these places where all these people come and they show off all their cool inventions or things they knit. People that, do Star Wars costumes, there's always those guys there. So we performed at some of those big science festivals, which is a lot of fun. But even we've performed outside where, the Audio Body show, it's kind of made for a theatrical environment where we have control of the lighting.
Yes.
But we found that, if we do the right material, we can do that outside too. The Audio Body show is about 75 minutes of material right now that we have. So a festival outside, we can do 30, 45 minutes to an hour even, and not really worry about lighting too much, as long as we're kind of making it more about, less gimmicky, like I said, and more about, this is going to be entertaining, whether there's lights flashing.
Sure.
Like that kind of thing anyway. So really, with Audio Body, we've performed in a lot of different situations. Like a lot of what we do is schools and theaters, and like I said, some festivals and things like that.
And would that be true for most of your work? How would you, percentage-wise, what would you say, like, for me, in Hong Kong, it's 80% birthday parties, 20% corporate, whereas when I was in Singapore, it was about it's almost the other way around, it's 80% corporate and 20% birthday parties.
Right.
What would you say your percentage of sort of shows? Is it 50% art centres, 20% schools? Just your all of your various work.
Yeah. I feel like lately, now that we've been looking into schools more, we've been booking more schools than performing arts centers for sure. I'm not sure the percentages, but I would say more schools for sure, because what ends up happening with a school a lot of times is they'll book multiple shows in a day.
Yeah.
And like we just got this run of shows outside of like Philadelphia, I think. It's somewhere in Pennsylvania. But this school district that basically said, all right, we're going to coordinate with all these schools, and we're doing 2 shows a day, Monday through Friday. So we got 10 shows right there.
Wow.
And at the end of the week, we're doing a big public show. And that's something, I mean, I know this podcast is for performers, so like one of the best things I think we've kind of stumbled on if you do school performances is if you can offer them a family fun night that night.
Right.
So basically the way it goes is you do your daytime show that maybe is educational, and then you tell the school, look, if you book me for this daytime show, I will give you a discount on the price if you can help me host an evening family fun night event where there's a small ticket price and you can kind of coordinate how much of the ticket price you get. But for example, we've done it where it's like we give them, what would it be, like 30% off the daytime show.
Yeah.
And then we do an evening show where we keep 90% of the ticket sales.
Right.
So for the school, they're kind of like, well, that's great. We just got 30% off the show price.
Yeah.
And all we have to do is this family fun night, which we like to do anyway. PTAs and PTOs,
Yes.
they love doing those family fun night events. And they get 10%, which they can kind of see it as going, oh, well, some of that money can go help pay for your daytime show. Plus, they can do a bake sale. They can do a raffle. So we found that, you're already set up. Do another show that night, and it's open to the public where you might be able to book other shows from that anyway.
Yes.
Anytime you're doing a public show versus a private show, you got more opportunities. But
yeah, I think that's the point. If you're doing a public show, you can give out your own name cards, your own brochures, and things like that.
Yeah, and we sell merchandise too. Like we have these little LED light sticks that
fantastic.
are actually the same thing our drumsticks are made from.
Yeah.
But we just take the little module from this tiny little stick and we stick it in a giant piece of PVC, and that's basically our drumsticks in the show. So it's kind of great because we just sell this unadulterated version of it that's about 8 inches long instead of this 12 or...
Yes, I think it's a brilliant idea. I've sometimes wondered if I could somehow sell merchandise at some of my public the shows that I'm in charge of. I think it's a really good idea. Good idea.
You can, we've made, quite a bit of money in merchandise sometimes. We've selling juggling balls. We've tried juggling balls. We've tried these LED light sticks. We've tried CDs, DVDs, and T-shirts. And for whatever, I think the LED light sticks, they're just fun. So and you can pack a ton of them in a small amount of space.
Yeah.
But we've even done this evening show model one time. We were doing it for a while for schools with our juggling show, where we said, we will do a free show at your school, completely free.
Yeah.
So as long as we can keep 90% of the ticket sales. And when we've done that, it's great because what happens is the school's like, you're giving us a free show. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And they are really motivated to give you a great crowd that night, because they're kind of going, well, what if we don't sell a lot of tickets in here?
Yeah.
And basically tell them, we're really confident that these kids are going to love the show during the day, that they're going to go home and drag their parents back. And we learned a lot. You have to have a school with the right amount of students. You can't do it for a really small school, probably. But if you have a school that has a decent amount of students and you have the right ticket price and you give them all the marketing materials and different things like that, we've made, a good amount of money. You know, the one I just did, I think we figured it out. We're like, yeah, we made just as much as if we were to charge them for 2 shows. You know, and you don't always make that much, but you know, it's one of those things where it's a way to kind of get out there in a school that basically they don't have to come up with any money, which to me I think is really cool.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's really interesting. So you're making your own. You're creating your own shows. You're not relying on an agent or an event company to book you. You're going out there with your own business plans, business ideas, and you're making it work.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this full-time, professionally?
Well, when I started in middle school, you know, I mean, I don't know if that counts, but that was, it'll be 21 years in May, and I've never had any other job.
Yeah.
So basically, the only job I've ever had is juggling and comedy and performing. So, yeah, I've never had to do anything else.
Wow. And so, okay, this is a good time then to go back to where I was going to start. So you're, let's talk about your life story and where you come from. So were you born in Maine?
Yes, I was.
And just in case there's loads of people like me who have no idea, Maine is the northeast part of the USA, and right now it's very snowy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we got probably almost 4 feet of snow right now.
Yeah.
At my house.
Wow.
But yeah, my brother and I, we grew up here in Maine, and when we were in middle school, I was 15. My brother was 13.
Roughly when were you born? What year are you?
1979.
1979. Ah, you're a youngster. There's a whole group of us who were born in 1971. I don't know why, but just randomly. There's a whole group of us who were born in 1971. Okay, so you're 8 years younger than me.
Okay. So yeah, we moved to this really small town in Maine, and we were in a local variety show, and we were dancing around to Weird Al Yankovic music.
Yeah.
And we had all these props, and we've always been kind of creative and, you know, lip syncing and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what we did, is we just did this fun variety thing where we're pulling out all these props and we're running around. And
was this something you created or something you joined? Was it something at school that you joined?
No, we just created ourselves. For the reason why we did it is there was a talent show coming up, and we said, "Oh, let's do this thing."
Right.
We just came up with it. We won the talent show.
How old were you then? About how?
I was 15.
15.
Yeah. So we did this talent show, and then basically this local the kind of community put it on this variety show. They've been doing it for years and years. Right. So they said, "Oh, why don't you do that skit thing you did in the talent show in this variety show?"
Yes.
We're like, "Oh, that'd be great." And in the town, there was also a professional juggler named Michael Micklon.
Okay.
And he saw us in the show, and he did his own act in the show. And he saw my brother and I, and actually another guy that was in the piece with us.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, you guys are great." When I was in middle school, I had a performing artist husband and wife team actually found him and asked him if he would like to work with them. So when he saw us, he saw the same thing. He was like, "Wow, you guys are great on stage. You're fearless. You don't mind making yourselves look like idiots." So he's like, I could harness your energy and like teach you juggling and stuff. And at first we're just like, this guy's like, you know, to us he's basically famous, you know.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we'll go to your shows, help you set up your sound system, learn juggling. This sounds great.
Brilliant.
And, yeah, within a short amount of time, we were like, you know, he's doing this for a job. I think we could do this. And, you know, we were doing birthday parties within...
Okay, so let me just cut in there. So, Michael Micklon. How do you spell Micklon?
It's M-I-C...
M-I-C?
L-O-N.
Okay, so if people want to look him up, Michael Micklon. So that's fantastic. You're about 15 years old.
Yeah.
Michael Micklon sees you and takes you under his wing.
Yeah.
And he teaches you juggling, introduces you to juggling.
Yeah, he was a very like comedic juggler.
Yeah.
You know, he does a lot of like audience interaction. He's just one of the funniest guys I've ever met. So that's kind of what he taught us, was that. And the other great thing is that he also helped bring us into his shows, where he would do a show somewhere and he'd always let us do something small in his show.
In the show.
Which was so it was a great way for us to kind of like get our feet wet, where he's like, all right, you guys just wrote your first little juggling thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my show, and then partway in, he'll say, okay, now I got a very special guest. Matt and Jason are going to come out, and they're going to do something they've been working on. And it kind of sets it up to the audience where they know, all right, these are these two young guys, and they're going to do something. And, you know, at that point...
It's a great environment to start, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
We got to do that.
And did you realise quite quickly that you were pretty good natural jugglers?
I mean...
Because I've seen your videos, you're very good jugglers, right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, nowadays, no.
Oh, nowadays, well,
like when
I wouldn't believe all those videos on YouTube. I think they've practiced 10 zillion times and they finally put up one video where the trick actually worked. You're on stage in front of an audience, and I've seen your videos, and you don't drop much. It's very good, very good.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we did find pretty quick, like, I think my brother and I, we've always been able to pick things up pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the deal is with that. I mean, we were good students. I graduated a year early, like I said, and I was actually valedictorian of my class. And it wasn't because I was like, oh, I'm going to read and do all this stuff. I just, you know, learning comes naturally, I think, to us.
Yeah.
So when we tried to learn juggling, I think the best thing for us, the best reason why we learned so quickly and got so proficient at it is because there was two of us.
Right.
And I would learn something, and then he would try to beat me.
Yes.
And then he would learn something, and then I would try to beat him. So it was this really good, you know, friendly competition where we're learning stuff as fast as we can. And then we saw, really early on, I don't know if you know of Jay Gilligan.
Yes.
But he had a juggling troupe in Maine called Blink. It was him, Fritz Groba, who is now... If you guys have ever seen the Diet Coke and Mentos videos, he's one of the guys that do that big Bellagio fountain thing. So he's from Maine and actually lives... I'm actually his agent, actually.
You're his agent?
Yeah. And, which is a whole nother story. But, and then, basically, we saw their show, and Jay, as a lot of people that know who Jay Gilligan is, you know, he's insane. And he was only about, I think, 3 or 4 years older than me. But when I saw that kind of juggling, the high skill, because our mentor was comedy and he was really good at that.
Yes.
But then when I started seeing high skill juggling, I was just like, oh my God, I got to learn how to juggle 5 clubs.
Yeah.
That was just like, someday I will do that. And I think that really helped us learn. But also, there was a school called the Celebration Barn Theater, which is in South Paris, Maine. And anybody out there listening to this, if you want to be better at whatever you do, if you're a dancer, a musician, juggler, a clown, the Celebration Barn Theater is the place to go. I mean,
Celebration
I was lucky. Yeah, it's called Celebration Barn Theater. I think if you look up,
they'll find it.
celebrationbarn.com or something.
Yeah,
but,
we'll find it.
Yeah, it is awesome. When I went there, and like I said, it was the next town over from where I grew up, so it was really nice. And we would do like painting the walls and weeding the garden and all this stuff to actually take workshops there. But it was started by Tony Montanaro, who was a mime.
Okay.
And he was one of the proteges of Marcel Marceau.
Right.
So he was there. He's passed on now, but he was there, and I actually got to take classes with him. But when I took classes there was people from Asia, Europe, all over the world would come to this little town in Maine. And it was really, really great place to learn because the different teachers there and performers there, and you could learn so much from everyone. But that was one of the other huge things that I think we got to do early on when we were still, 16 to 18 years old.
Yes.
And we're taking these classes with these world-renowned performers, and a lot of the people that go to Celebration Barn go to Cirque du Soleil. They're Broadway performers. They're
Wow. Okay.
World travel, or it's a really cool place. I don't know if you ever heard of Avner the Eccentric.
I love Avner the Eccentric. I've seen him live when he went to Singapore about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Love him. I saw him on TV when I was a little kid, and then I saw his live show when I was grown up in Singapore. Fantastic.
So his workshop is like one of the big ones that he does every summer. And he's from Maine too. Avner lives in Maine, and I've done shows with him and all that.
Whoa,
But,
Maine seems like a bit of a hub.
well, the reason why Maine is a hub is because of the Celebration Barn Theater. What happened was Tony came to Maine. He created this place. People from all over the world came to Maine to take these workshops, and a lot of times they settled. They were like, you know what, this place is pretty awesome. And I don't know if you know Michael Maness.
Michael Menes, of course, I've heard of him. I know exactly who he is. Yes.
Yeah, his wife, I guess ex-wife, is from Singapore, I believe. So, all these different people like Michael Maness and a bunch of other performers I know, even Jay Gilligan, when he came to Maine, one of the reasons why is because the Celebration Barn Theater was there. So yeah, what happened?
I actually, Michael Menes was a big influence on me. I saw him when I was growing up in England in 1992. I was at university, and we got hold of an IJA video, and he opened up. He had his 3-ball act, just the opening act in the video. We were like, wow! And then about 10 years later, I happened to be in Singapore, and of course his wife is Singaporean, so he came there twice to do shows. So I get to see him live. Oh, it was amazing. Loved him.
Yeah, and he was one of the teachers at the Celebration Barn Theater as well. So I got to take a class with him and Peter Davison. We're both great jugglers. But yeah, that piece is 3-round objects is what it's called. And yeah, he got 2nd or 3rd place at the IJA, but it was like 3 balls. And
I know. I mean, and his act was just, it was so perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so perfect. Amazing stuff. Yeah, so people check out Michael Menes. I think this is quite interesting, Jason, because you're 8 years younger than me. See, when I was 18, it was about 1990, and the juggling boom, there was a sort of a juggling boom in the late 80s, early 90s, but the circus schools and things didn't really get established until a bit after I'd already turned professional. But for you coming up 8 years later, it seems like there's a lot of stuff, especially in Maine, that you could learn from and go to. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, I think the reason why there's so many jugglers and performers out there that are, especially in the juggling, like you said, some of it's people get it once on video and they're like, yeah. But I think for me, when I grew up, I was looking up at people like Jay Gilligan doing 5 clubs going, that's insane.
Yeah.
You know, that's amazing. But it's, I think even more amazing is kids can now go online and see people like Wes Peden and things like that doing 7 clubs and doing all these crazy tricks where they're shooting for a higher point. You know, it's once you understand what's possible, you're like, well, okay.
Let's go a bit higher.
Several 7 clubs. All right, great. I'll go do that. And maybe when I was younger, I heard of people doing it, but seeing it, you know, and going, oh, that's possible. I can do that. I think that's what's great about the internet and all the YouTube videos out there, because people are seeing all these crazy influences and different things, and seeing what's possible, I think, is the first step into going out there and doing these things that are going to be the next big thing. You know what I mean?
I think the internet has had a big effect.
That kind of stuff happen.
Yeah, I think the internet and YouTube has really changed the whole world, and it's affected our industry. Yeah, people nowadays, if you want to learn a new trick or you want to get inspired, you just click onto YouTube and you start searching, and you'll see, oh my goodness, that'll give me a new idea. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously there are downsides to it as well, where, you know, someone's like, well, I saw this kid that can juggle 8 balls, and you're like, well, so what?
There's that interesting. Someone was making the comment about Anthony Gatto, and I can't remember what it was now. It was Anthony Gatto. I haven't read the article yet, so I'm talking blindly. But I think Anthony Gatto retired because he was a bit tired of people saying there's people on YouTube doing way better tricks than you, and his point was he was performing in front of an audience, whereas YouTube people obviously would record until they got the perfect video.
Yeah, and I find too. I mean, the stuff I do in my show, you know, I got down, I can do it. And obviously I do try some stuff that's still pushing me. You know, I like to add new things and push myself. But a lot of times it's all about how you present what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, with juggling is just like magic. You know, you can do the same trick and present it a different way. But if you do a piece where, you know, Like Michael Maness juggled 3 balls, but he did it in such a way that was so entertaining and had so much character and so much finesse
Exactly.
that it's going to blow you away. And if some guy comes out and juggles 7 balls for 5 minutes straight, that's not that entertaining, you know?
Yes.
So I try to tell people when I talk to kids about juggling, I say, well, there's comedic juggling where you're trying to be funny and do some stuff like that. There's performance juggling where maybe there's some comedy, but it's technical as well. And then there's also just sport juggling, you know, like the World Juggling Federation, where it's not about being entertaining at all. It's about just doing crazy tricks.
Yes.
And, you know, I find the audience doesn't know the difference if you're juggling 5 balls or 6 balls.
Yeah.
they can't tell the difference. So if you just act like 5 balls is this crazy trick you're about to do and do just 5, they're going to be really happy with that.
Yeah,
you know?
I think so. I think the most impressive trick for the audience is probably not going to be the most difficult trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, there's definitely some tricks out there that I know when I watch a video of some jugglers and I see, you know, Wes Peden, which is funny because I moved to Rochester, New York when Wes Peden started getting into juggling, so I know Wes from when he was younger, too, which is funny. But, you know, when I see him now doing some tricks and say my wife is next to me, I'll be like, oh my God, did you just see that? And she's like, I don't have any idea what he just did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As a juggler, you go, oh, I know exactly what he just did and how hard that is. But any audience person, they don't know the difference. They don't see all the time and effort that goes into some of that. So some of it, you know, and I think some of the stuff Wes does is playing to other jugglers too. You know, his audience is other jugglers, which is kind of interesting too.
That's a good point. All right, let's talk about two kind of large topics. One is how did you transition from it being a hobby to being part-time work to being a full-time profession? And well, let's go for that one. Yeah. And also, were there any big turning points, or were there any big moments along that journey?
Yeah, it's funny because it was almost never a hobby.
Right.
Which is really weird.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of performers, that's how they get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always been creative and stuff, but because we were kind of like hand-picked, and this guy was like, you guys are awesome at juggling. You should learn juggling. And then we started doing stuff with him and in his shows.
That's right. Yeah. So
cool.
you yes, it wasn't a hobby. You were taught by a professional, and you were working in his shows for money.
Yeah, so, I mean, at first, obviously, we weren't getting paid from his shows,
no.
but basically, you know, that first Christmas, you know, it was May that we learned to juggle. I think that first Christmas, we asked our parents for all magic and juggling props and all this stuff, and I want to say it was like January that we did our first birthday party event, you know, where we made money. You know, we made like $50 or something. Yeah. And I think as far as like part-time to full-time, the way I always look at it is we were in middle school, you know, 15 years old, and then by the time I graduated when I was 17 or 18, we got our own apartment and we could pay the bills. Yeah. And then as I got older, I had more bills and more bills. Luckily,
do not adjust your set. I repeat, do not adjust your set. Now, this is basically just Skype letting us down here. I don't know what Jason said, but basically, I think he's talking about those years from high school, graduating high school, over the next few years, moving out of his parents' house and renting their own apartment. And he's saying that he basically as he got more bills to pay, he got more work to cover paying for those bills. Alright, Skype is working again. Let's get back to Jason.
It was kind of nice because as I started making more money, I had more bills to pay. I guess that's not nice, actually, because if it didn't go that way. But it was kind of nice because, you know, living at my parents' house for the first couple years kind of was my part-time, I guess. And then when my brother graduated, I guess is when it was, we got our own apartment. So we just... You know, she was like, well, you're making enough money, you either got to pay us rent or get your own place. And we're like, all right, we're going to get our own place.
Okay.
So, yeah,
so it was quite natural.
It's kind of a weird thing. I've always done it. It's the only thing I know. Like, other people have had real jobs. I've never had any other job but either performing or like I said, do some agent work where I book other performers just because a lot of times, a festival will want me and I say, well, I got these other friends, they're really good too, and I kind of help them get the gigs and things like that.
Sure, yeah. Were there any big turning points or turning key points, or was it a gradual progression?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was gradual. One of the bigger things I think that really helped me as a performer, besides like studying at the Celebration Barn, was Mike Micklon. When I was, I think, 18, so I just graduated from high school. My brother was still a senior in high school. He was 1 year behind me in school. And every morning I would drive my brother to school, get to Mike Micklon's house, and he had bought this old Oddfellows Hall building. So it's basically like this big, long building, and he wanted to renovate it into a theater. So I'd drop my brother off at school, go to there, and build a theater, basically. And Mike Micklon had experience in construction, so he knew what he was doing, but we basically built a theater from scratch out of this old building.
Wow.
And I got to do shows there, and we made all these different variety shows that I was a part of. We made this late night talk show kind of spoof thing we did where I was the co-host and Mike Micklon was the host.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of things that's like not your normal, like, okay, I'm going to write this 5-minute piece, I'm going to use this piece of music, I'm going to use this prop, and I'm going to juggle. And that's kind of how I used to write material. I'd take a piece of music, get a prop, and write down all the tricks and kind of put it together.
Yes.
And that would be but this was more like free form where you go out on stage and a lot of it's improv, a lot of it's just you being right there on the spot. And I think that made me grow as a performer. That's one of the biggest things, is having that theater and having a place that the audience is coming to see your shows, and they know that a lot of what you're doing, you're either making up on the spot or you made up earlier that week.
Yeah.
And they're ready for that kind of energy. It's like an improv show. And we even did some improv shows, but it has that feeling where you got like this hometown crowd that kind of knows who you are and they understand what you're doing, and they're just ready to laugh and have fun. And
this is fantastic. You're a very lucky, amazing guy. That's incredible. Do you like to
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's happened is definitely lucky for sure.
Wow. Do you like to improvise at all in your shows? Your I guess something like Audio Body would be very hard to improvise, but maybe a solo show you can improvise in.
Yeah, we've found places in Audio Body to improvise, which has actually been some of the most fun stuff.
Yeah.
Like we'll have a transition between this piece and this piece, and we've something that's like not to music. Like, for example, my brother is a contortionist, so we do this whole bit where I'm playing the music and he fits his body through a ring, this metal hoop, which is actually a bicycle rim.
Yeah.
And then the music ends and he's like, hey, that's the end. And then I hit the music and start again, and I keep playing, and I give him a folding chair and he goes through that, and then the music ends, and then so it kind of progresses.
Yes,
There's all these like little bits in between where we can kind of interact with each other. But then at the end of that, we kind of came up with this idea where, he finishes by going through a tennis racket. That's the end of that. It's not going to get any better. And then he gives me the tennis racket, so then I balance it on my chin. And there's no music or anything happening. It's just, us kind of being silent clowning type performers at that point. And he gives it to me, I bounce on my chin. He's like, all right, fine, do the folding chair. And I bounce the folding chair. And then he runs off stage and gets a ladder. And it used to be I just bounced the ladder. But now we found like all these fun things kind of through improv and messing around on stage, that where we are, he's fitting his body through the ladder as we're trying to lift it up and all this like craziness. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of improv with that. But I would say in the juggling show, for sure, there's a lot more. One example is like our knife juggling bit, where when we first started doing it, it was probably 5 minutes long. And it's progressed where we just keep coming up with all these jokes to make each other laugh.
Right.
And I think that's the best part about having a two-person act, is you can say something on stage, the other person likes it, and then you can remember it. But also, the big thing we try to do is we try to make each other laugh on
Yes,
stage.
yes.
So if something comes up in my head, I'm like, I'm going to make Matt laugh.
Try to
And
make
this
him
is gonna
crack.
be awesome. And by trying to make each other laugh, I think that is what makes it great. But now that 5-minute bit with the knives is turned into, we have to break it up into 2 sections. So now it's 2 10 to 15-minute bits.
Wow.
So we could easily do 30 minutes with just this one thing that used to be 5 minutes long. And most of that is because it's all this improv and jokes and stuff. And we're like, we have too many jokes. We have to cut things. So we're like cutting jokes, and then we come up with new jokes. So after a while, we're like, we should just make it 2 separate pieces, because there was kind of 2 stunts in it.
Yeah.
And we just said, let's just make that a stunt, that a stunt. Some shows will do this, some shows will do that. Maybe we'll do both in some. But yeah, that kind of improv of trying to make each other laugh is actually, yeah, way more fun. And when the whole solo show thing, it's funny because when I first started doing solo shows, it's because my brother and I, we ended up living apart.
Right.
We've moved around, and we keep leapfrogging where he'll move somewhere and I'll move somewhere. But for me, doing a solo show was so foreign to me. It was so weird.
Ah,
And
you're the
even
opposite.
today-
You're the opposite to me, because I've worked solo for
Yeah.
so long.
and I think that's with most performers, like that's how they learned it. But for me, it was like doing a solo show. I was like, it was nerve-wracking where I'm like, I can't say this joke and set somebody else up to say the punchline. So sometimes I try to say the joke where I'm setting myself up and then doing the punchline. It's not as funny. It's not as funny to like say the setup and then hit the punchline.
Yeah.
And there's also something about having another person on stage to like let the audience know that what you did was funny. And I'm not
Yes.
sure how to explain that better, but it's like if I say something dumb in a solo show, the audience can just take it as that was dumb.
Yeah.
If I say something dumb in a duet show, my brother can be on stage and be like, "That was so dumb," and that makes it funny though.
Yes,
somehow.
yes.
You know, you can be more goofy and more. I don't know. I really enjoy 2-person shows better than by myself for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a whole podcast in itself, the difference between doing a solo performer and doing a 2-man
Yeah.
show. I mean, I had a good 2-man show about 10 years ago with a friend in Singapore, but now we're in different countries, so we don't do it together. And there was that moment when I know exactly what you're talking about. We'd be doing a show, and I'd just say something to crack him up and make him lose it, and it was hilarious. It was great fun on stage, just to try and then by doing that, the show would build, and the more you'd be writing the show on stage. Each time you performed it, you'd think of new bits to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're always, any show that we do together, you know, after the show, we're always like, oh, that was really funny when you said that. And we try to make it a point to say that. That way the person's like, oh, that was funny. Okay, because, you know, when you're in the middle of it, you don't always know what's going on. But,
yeah, I think that's a tip for performers. Right away after the show, if you don't record the show, straight after the show, write down or talk about what the new bits were before you forget them.
Yeah. I know a lot of performers that do that. They'll record, like, every show and watch it, and that would just make me sick. I don't know. I can't do that. I'm sure I'd learn. I've actually been thinking about, like, I should really record one of these shows because I've done it in the past, but you can learn a lot, I know, from watching it. But some performers are, like, religious where they record every show and they watch it back and they tweak it. And I don't know if it's because I started off with Mike Micklon, who's such a free-form performer, where he's just, like, goes on stage and has... Sometimes when he does a show, he just has his box of stuff and he doesn't even know what order he's doing it in.
Ah, that's lovely,
He's just like, I'm going to come out, and he basically looks at it as like, I'm the fun guy at the party. And this is what I'm going to do to entertain you. And being that open and ready to engage with an audience at that level, it's really freeing, but also you're going to be way funnier than the guy that has every line nailed down and knows exactly what he's going to say, no matter what the audience reaction is.
Yes.
I think you're open and ready to be there and actually interacting with those people. It's pretty awesome. You can really come up with way more funnier stuff.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Yeah, there's so many ways to perform. You can have a choreographed show, which can be great, where it's almost the same every single time. And I've done those, and I've also done shows where I've turned up and the organizer has said, "Here is your space. you've got an hour, do whatever you want. And I just had my big suitcase and I've just pulled out whatever I felt like, and whoever's wandering past at that point, I'll interact with them and invent some sort of routine with some juggling balls or hats or whatever comes out of my bag next. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you rehearse? Do you come up with? I'm going to put words in your mouth now. I'm guessing from what I'm hearing, you come up with an idea. You practice a bit. You practice with your brother, and then you put it into a show, and then as you're performing the show, you get more and more ideas, and the bit develops. Is that a fair way?
Yeah. A lot of that's how it works. You kind of come up with the idea and just try it out. I always love trying out new stuff. With the Audio Body show, it's only about 6 years old now, actually.
Right.
We've only been doing it for about 6 years, and for the first few years, every single show was different. There was at least something different, and in the beginning, some of them would be drastically different, just because we're like, all right, this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work, and we're always kind of trying out new stuff, and we're always trying to figure out, well, what is it that works, what is it that doesn't work, and whenever we think of a new idea, we'll be between shows where we're at a school or something, and we have 2 shows in the same day, and we're like, all right, we got 5 minutes before the audience comes in, he's on the computer trying to reprogram a lighting effect or add a new sound effect or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think, with that kind of stuff, that's how we do it. With juggling, it really is, I find a piece of music I like, I find a prop, and with the prop, I'll write down every single trick I can think of on a piece of paper or on a computer, and then listen to the music and listen to what the music is kind of inspiring me to do is usually how I do it.
Yep.
And, I usually have a basic idea of, this trick is going to be the final trick. These are some of the beginning tricks, or if it's a balls, I'm going to go from 3, 4 to 5 or whatever it is. I don't know. But that's a lot of times how I create material is get it, some kind of structure, put it on stage, and then the audience is your best director. They're the people that are going to tell you if something worked or didn't work. And if you're smart, you're going to listen to them.
Yeah. Talking about you say this will be the final trick, this will be the first trick. How do you structure? Do you have a general way of structuring your shows? Is there a common way of structuring your shows? A beginning, a middle, and an end?
Yeah, I mean, with like a single performance piece or like the whole show as a whole?
Yeah, I'm talking about a whole show now. Yeah, going from a single piece to a whole show. Right. Is there a formula that's worked for you, or is every show completely different?
No, I think pretty much every show we do has a similar structure, I would say. Almost every show we do, even the Audio Body show, the first thing we do is we try to do something that engages with the audience and kind of warms them up.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, in a juggling show, we might say, all right, we're going to do the show. We need a high-energy audience. And then we say, so we're going to get you guys warmed up. And then I'll do a one-up pirouette, 360, juggling 3 clubs. And then get the audience to cheer. And then we kind of make jokes. There's a lot of jokes that go around all this. But then Matt will do like a 2-up 360. And then we get a person on stage, and then we pass clubs around them or something like that. And having something like that in the beginning, I really like, because it shows our personality, it interacts with them, and really gets the audience like warmed up. And the whole idea is like we're not just going to come out and expect you to clap for us. I don't know. It's weird. It's like we get them going where it's like, this is what we expect from you. We almost train our audience, I guess.
Right.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
The very first thing, we're like, when we do something cool, you guys clap, and then we show them an example and we do it. In Audio Body, we actually bring an audience person on stage and they play on our drum set. Right. And that does 2 things. We go, okay, when they finish, you guys are going to go crazy as an audience. You have to cheer and applaud for this person. And also it explains how our drum set works, because with Audio Body, we have people after the show, not as much now, but we have people always going, "Were you guys really playing anything? Does that stuff really do anything?"
Right, or was it just, or were you just
audio
moving in
body-
time to a soundtrack? Yeah.
Yeah, we're always trying to like show the audience how things work and then do something amazing with it. But I think every show, we kind of train the audience that we expect a high energy audience. We expect them to interact with us and cheer and really be vocal.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get that established, we have, all the different bits that we do in the show. We try to do, I don't know, have different levels.
Yes, I think you do.
Have something that's slower, or
Yes,
something
yes.
that is really talkative. You don't want to put it next to something else that's talkative. So we try to format a show in a way that changes and keeps the audience interested. And then obviously you want to end with your biggest, coolest thing. And even in Audio Body,
Yeah, what's the biggest, coolest thing at the moment?
it's funny. We used to end with our jumpsuits
Right.
when we first started. Then, now we don't. We open our second half with jumpsuits. And sometimes we'll end with jumpsuits if we're somewhere that doesn't have blackout capabilities.
Right.
We used to end with Imperial March, which we play Star Wars Imperial March song.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, that was in the very beginning of the show, so we moved that around.
Oh.
And now, what we end with is Shockwave, which is our blacklight ropes. So we have these ropes, and we shine these blue lights on them, and we basically shake them and make these sound waves is what they look like across the stage.
Yeah, I've seen the video. Incredible.
Yeah, and that just visually, like we used to think Imperial March, people love it, but now what we do is we kind of do Imperial March right into Shockwave, where it's almost like bang bang, we hit them twice.
Right.
Something that they know, they understand. Imperial March is like, and we do a little lightsaber battle in there and everything, and people love it. But then hitting them with this other thing, and now Shockwave, the music for that is actually a remix of one of Matt's songs mixed with Thriller. So having that recognizable Thriller remix song in there is really fun too. But I think that piece is really visual and just, gets people excited. So, but it's been trial and error, really. We definitely did try different things to end the show with. But I think now we kind of are settled on this, at least for now, until we come up with something even crazier, I guess.
Yeah, it's incredible. So people should check it out. Shockwave. You can find that quite easily on the internet. Videos of that.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good.
And it's one of the simplest things we do, really. All it is a bunch of lights, and we have LED lighting in our show, and we have them on blue. We used to actually use black light panels, but we find that the blue light works just as well and actually almost makes them look brighter.
Oh.
And then
That's interesting. This is the kind of thing that I'd know about, because I assumed it was just UV. It's not UV lighting.
it used to be UV lighting, and I'm not sure if the video. Honestly, I can't remember what video online right now, but
let's go into the technical stuff. So, because when I was at university back in 1990, the year above me there were some really good jugglers, and they created a company called Ultravision, and they were the big hit at the British Juggling Convention in about 1992, and they had a black light show with UV fluorescent juggling clubs and UV lights.
Yep.
So you just saw the clubs and things flying around with no people. They were all just in black. It was great. So I assumed yours was UV, but you can use a blue light.
Yeah, so what we found is the UV black lights, we used like LED. There were LED UV, basically, is what we used at first. And then when we decided we wanted to make the whole audio body show pack up into like 4 checked bags, we started going, okay, what can we get rid of? And we said, well, let's just see what this rope thing looks like when we turn our lights, because our lights are all like red, blue, green,
right?
LED lights.
Yes.
So we said, well, what if we just put on the blue and see what that looks like? And what we found was it did something kind of different. What it did is it made the lights actually brighter. The ropes are brighter now, but the whole stage is brighter.
Yeah.
So like with a black light, if you were to shake a rope under black light, all you pretty much see is that rope.
Yes.
But if you shine blue light, the whole stage is lit in blue, but the rope is actually brighter. In a way, because it's just so that you can just get so much more power out of this blue light.
That's right, because black light isn't really that powerful, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't seem to be anyway. I mean, I'm sure you can get some that are you
Yeah.
know, way more powerful. But what we also found is now that you can see the whole stage, instead of the ropes being the whole show and people just sitting back and watching these ropes,
Right.
we found that us as performers manipulating these ropes is actually part of the show too.
Oh.
So now while we're moving the ropes, they can kind of see us. So we're accenting how we're shaking the rope, or
Yes.
we're doing these things where we're both moving around the stage. Or because it's now the song has Thriller in it, Matt actually does a little bit of a Thriller dance, like as he's
Of
walking across the
course,
stage.
why not?
Yeah. So, using the blue lights, we found it made the ropes show up better. We could see us on stage, which at first we were like, I don't know if that's good, but once we embraced it, we're like, oh, this is actually way better. And it is one less thing we have to carry around with us. We don't have to bring these black light panels with us anymore. We can just use the existing lights we already had on stage, which is really nice.
And there you go again. It's just developing the show constantly,
Yeah.
improving and tinkering and improving. That's great. That's really good. Really good. I'm glad we got something really specific there.
Yeah.
What would be your thinking back on your career so far? What would be what kind of gig, what kind of show would have been one of your best ones? What thing do you really? I'm sure there's lots of things that the highlights. But
Yeah.
what stands out in your memory? Any particular ones?
Yeah. We did. You know, the White House has an Easter egg roll event.
Yes,
Where
I've seen you on
like-
the internet.
Yeah. So it's a big festival on the White House lawn, and to be honest, doing the shows aren't that great or
No.
fun because it's cold and usually rainy, and you're opening for like the Jonas Brothers. So
Yes.
all these girls just want you to stop juggling and get out of the way
Yes.
so they can. But that's like a great credit, obviously.
Yes.
But one thing about 2 years ago now, Matt and we opened our own theater in Freeport, Maine, kind of following the footsteps of our mentor, where he had his own theater, and we
Yes.
said the Audio Body Show would be great if we had our own theater that
Yeah.
could kind of be this place where we could bring in our friend performers and they could do shows. But during the summer, we basically ran the Audio Body Show Friday night, 2 shows on Saturday, and on Sunday we actually did our juggling show. But something about having our own theater,
Oh my goodness, yeah.
doing a show in your own space where it's kind of like your theater, that was really, really cool. I really loved it. And the great thing about it was we were in the same space.
Yes.
And could do the show over and over again in the same space. And there's something about having your show set up in one place for multiple times where you can actually learn a lot about the show. You're not going, oh, well, this factor was what made that joke not work, or this is what. You can actually start really being present during the show and understanding what's working, what's not working. And I think that was invaluable, but also it was so awesome. Like, we were doing our own shows where we ran the whole thing ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, we had a couple volunteers, but basically we sold the tickets online, and we were in charge of tickets. We were in charge of making sure the bathrooms were clean. I was ordering, baked goods and soda and stuff for the concession thing.
So just to jump in here, Jason, how does that work? What I'm interested in is, can you do that year after year, or would you have to create a new show each year in order to bring back an audience?
Yeah, well, I think you could do it if you were in the right location. I mean, there's obviously places that do that, like Branson and Vegas and
Yes.
things like that, where, people do probably change their show slightly, but
There's so many tourists and people coming in each year, you don't really need to change it much.
yeah, and Freeport, Maine is like, it's where LL Bean, which is a clothes manufacturing company, is, and basically it is the #1 tourist destination in Maine. They either go to like one of the national parks or this area.
Oh,
so we
okay.
thought that was actually a really great place because the audience was a lot of turnover. But
Yes.
we actually found a lot of people became big fans of ours, and they would come like once, and then they'd come like a couple months later, and
Oh,
or
brilliant.
there was some kids that would, they would come way more than I can't believe they came as much as they did. They would come like 4 or 5 times throughout the whole summer. And it was really, really, really cool. But But yeah, I think you have to be set up in the right place. Like for us, in the end, running a theater sounds awesome and it was fun, but there's so much stress about selling tickets that
Yes.
I hated that part. That was the part where I was just like, I don't want to know that we have 6 tickets sold and our show is in 5 hours. You know, or something like that. Where I'm just like, that makes me want to throw up. So we did some shows for like, I want to say one of our smallest audiences was like 15, 20 people or something like that. Maybe 12 people.
Right.
I don't know. But actually, that was an awesome show. The show for 12 people was awesome. It was like, we have 12 people. I don't care. We're going to have fun. And these 12 people are going to have the best, hour and a half they've had. And, I don't know. There's something really fun about having that theater just in general. But also, the downside is selling tickets and, there was a really heavy rent that we had to pay every month.
So to talk technically,
so in the end, we made money, but touring you make way more money.
So it's really good fun, but maybe not viable as a business to do it forever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard because like most businesses don't make money the first year, or whatever. Like a lot of theaters, and we actually made money. We were paying this really high rent. We were making money.
You still made money.
So and actually we sold it to somebody else, and they ended up not wanting to keep it going. I don't know if they weren't making money or not, but it was something where I think it was viable and was possible. The only problem was, for me, I only have so much time, and if there was another Jason that I could send out and run this theater, that would have been great.
Right.
But for me to pay the bills and everything with my family, like making $15,000 running a theater versus making a lot more not running a theater, and being on the road.
Yes.
And also it's a lot more time consuming. But I mean, it was cool.
I guess what I was interested in was, if it was so much fun, how come you're not still doing it? Is it because it?
Well, it was fun, but it was also stressful.
Right.
And didn't quite make as much money.
You make more money touring. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard because there's part of me that always goes, well, someday maybe I'll try that again.
Yeah, I guess that's the dream, isn't it? That's the goal. That would be the dream job. Okay.
But I think in the end, I'd rather, and I know other performers that are, interested. I think if you're going to do something like that, you're, instead of doing everything like the way we did it, we basically went, we found a space, we, pay this guy, the landlord, basically X amount, and we have to do everything. I think you're better off finding a theater or some kind of space and saying, I want to set up and do my show here for a month or whatever it is, and do a long run. And I think you're going to get a lot of benefit out of doing a show for a long run somewhere and working on advertising, and you're going to have that experience, but it's not as much of a commitment, of doing everything yourself, where you feel like there's some kind of setup already there with the theater or some kind of space. Yeah.
Maybe that's one of the few things I haven't done in my career. I've always worked for agents, for event companies, and gone somewhere to do a show for an event. I had a friend in Singapore who did rent out a theatre and did his own big magic show there. Maybe one day I should try that. Just get people to pay for tickets to come and see me. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, well, we got a taste of it too. Like, our mentor ran his own theater, but then when we first had something really interesting, your listeners might like, is when we first had the idea for Audio Body, we had all these ideas, and we said, well, we're going to need a couple $1,000s just for the laptop to make the show work. And we were lucky that our mentor had been talking to this bank that we're really good friends with the people that owned and ran this bank, and which is great. They helped finance his theater, and they were looking for a way to reach out to millennials and things like that. And we said, we have this new show we really would like to make. And the marketing guy was kind of already a fan of what we did. And we said, we got this new idea, and this is what we want to do. And the way we proposed it to him is we said, we're going to do this tour. And the bank was Northeast Bank. So we basically said, we'll do the Northeast Bank tour. And the way we'll do it is, you give us some money so we can get the show off the ground, and then we'll rent out theaters for, a night. We'll sell the tickets. We'll do everything. We'll produce the shows ourselves. We'll do the advertising, and we'll sell it as a Northeast Bank tour. And they're basically getting their name on it.
Yes.
And that's what they're paying for. And we're using some of that money to buy equipment. We're using some of it to rent the halls. And then the ticket money, we didn't charge very much because we wanted a lot of people there to help their cause, but also we wanted people at our shows. So that was actually the first shows we did with the Audio Body, were these Northeast Bank tours, where we've self-produced ourselves in 4 or 5 different places. I think they actually made T-shirts, the bank did, and they gave them out to the first 100 people that came to the shows. But that was really fun, and I think that's something viable that people can do, is if they want to, like, create this little mini tour, you can find these theaters, or there's a lot of places like community theater groups.
Yes.
They're putting on plays, and they have this space, and there's a hole in their schedule, and you can say, hey, how much does it cost? And sometimes it's surprising. Some of the spaces we rented, like $250 for a night, which isn't bad. And then other places, are $1,000 a night or something like that. But, it really can be a really fun way of getting your show out there and learning a lot about, what other people have to do to sell your show.
Yeah.
So, like with marketing, we learned a lot, like, we need to market our show differently because we're marketing ourselves as, like, too cool. And we've got to make it more like, this is a fun, family-friendly show.
Right.
Because people would look at our promotional materials at first and go, I don't know, our kids, is this okay for, like, 8-year-old? And we're like, yes, it's great for an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And then I look at our poster and I'm like, you know what? We look a little too crazy or, like, too serious or whatever. So, you definitely learn a lot by self-producing your show and advertising and all that.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously working for you because this is, like you say, is all you've ever done.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's definitely been years where things were tighter than others, and different things. I always feel like I never feel like I'll just sit back and not do anything. I always feel like I have to hustle and call people and interact and do things to get work, and take the gigs that you're like, I really rather not do that gig. I mean, I'm not anyone that's like out there going, I can do whatever I want. I make tons of money.
Yeah.
I definitely, still have to pay the bills, and I work hard at trying to make that happen. But luckily, I've always pulled through where I made enough to pay all the bills, and, I'm definitely fortunate. I'm very, very happy with that I get to do this for a job. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Jason, I think it's a good place to stop, Jason. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah, thank you.
And there we go. As the strains of the Chinese New Year music sway off into the distance, I am now packing up to go to Singapore for a week. I'm going to be hopefully doing a bit of work there, doing a few shows. If you're in Singapore, look out for Big Ben, and hopefully I'll get a few interviews with some of the entertainers in Singapore. So stick around and tune in next week. This is Big Ben at Meet the Entertainers on the Big Ben Show. Take care. Goodbye.